If you wanna ride, go ride the White House. If you wanna ride.
My whole sort of being was always about music, and at a certain point I had been in bands throughout my whole entire youth, and I started learning how to produce in high school. But my parents really pushed me to go to college and have something to fall back on, as music is not really the most viable career, especially back then. There wasn't music schools, there wasn't mentorship, there wasn't any of that. It was just you either had to know somebody or just have a great band and all that.
So would you say Ohm was like one of your first big breaks? Your deal with Ohm Records?
Ohm was a big break for us in a lot of ways. It taught me. I'm a student of the game. That's basically my personality. Whatever I do, I'm always studying. I may have enough knowledge to get into something, but I'm always studying. So what I learned from Ohm Records, well, first of all, it took us forever to we put out singles with them, but it took us forever to get really, signed and start moving with them. But we got lucky and got on their Deep Concentration tour. And because they were interested in signing us, we ended up doing all 30 dates. Mm-hmm. And that tour basically was like a trial by fire, how to tour on a shoestring budget, and how you make money and what's possible on tour and how you build an audience. And that was really like going to like graduate school for touring for me. Mm-hmm. And I just sucked all of it up. I learned, the finances of touring, how to sell merchandise, how you book shows, who can book shows for you, how you get on festivals. So we did those 30 dates, and then we ended up signing a deal with Ohm. It was a 3-album deal. And then, our first album did very well. So from there, I learned how to do press, how to build press relationships. This is when magazines were king, there wasn't blogs and
right, yeah,
and social media. So I really learned the importance of good photography, good photos, how to have good relationships with the media. Because the media, if they don't like you, they're not going to cover you. So we basically made a career for ourselves in this weird underground market that didn't have a system set up for it. The clubs didn't have the proper sound system. Almost every club that we had to go to, we had to rewire it and re-EQ it so that when we played, it sounded good. We played everything from hip-hop clubs to rave.
And who would do that? Who would rewire and re-EQ the system?
Fred and I. We would literally come in and the thing would be a total mess, and we'd be like, okay, I guess instead of doing sound check, we're going to spend 2 hours figuring this out. And we would just re-EQ the room, rewire whatever we had to rewire, like just do it. Mm-hmm. And everyone would be amazed at how good we sounded. It was because we spent, instead of, effing off like other bands would do, we would literally go in and make sure it sounded good before we played.
Yeah, that's huge. If anybody is listening to this, they should be really keying in on the diversity of skill sets that you bring to the table here. Both, literally having a tech background, then being able to produce multiple genres of music, and then, hedging your bets in a way. It's like you hedged your bet. You got a deal on a style and a genre of music that you didn't think was going to be the one to get signed, right? And then on top of that, you setting up your own career by investing in yourselves and developing your sound, and then being able to go on tour and investing in that. So there's a lot of diversity here, and I think that speaks to both your tenacity but also just your own brilliance.
I looked at everything as sort of like an opportunity to learn something. So if I was spending money on something, it was so that I could learn about how that thing worked. If I made merchandise, if I took money that I made from the internet business and put it into merchandise, I was learning how that business worked, even if we didn't do well with that merchandise. Like if we had T-shirts that didn't do well, then we would just give away 500 T-shirts on tour, and it would become promotional. I never looked at any of the mistakes that we made as mistakes, because they were all just sort of, the term sort of failing forward. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I look at the music business, is that you just need to fail endlessly. I mean, the music business is 90% failure. Yeah. All you need is a small percentage of success that's big enough that gets you past the next guy. And most people give up way before they get a chance to taste any of the success. There was a commercial music house called Crushing in New York, and we had because we had done that Nissan Sounds campaign with Michael Frick at Bophonics. It was where we mic'd the car sounds of the car, and we turned that into a track. and we ended up being in the commercial, and that commercial ended up paying for a tour.
I can't wait a minute. That was you?
That's me.
I've used that commercial in several of our music business classes as as an example of how to be super creative in your approach to
The Me
developing a
First
soundtrack.
album, the one that they did years later, someone else copied it.
Oh, maybe so, but where you're sampling all the car sounds, the
Yeah,
doors, the horn, the beeps, the seat belts, the whole thing, right? And then
that's
turn it
me.
into a track. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. I didn't even realize that was you.
That's
That's
me. So
I gotta go back and relook at that now
the
because
story with that, this is again another one of those crazy stories. I got a call from, I think it was from Michael, who said, we got a short list of people we'd like to have make music. Can you make music out of car sounds? I was like, we can make music out of anything, whatever. Just what do you need?
that's the never
And
say no. I love attitude, man.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I was like, this sounds cool to me,
right.
and that was the difference between Fred and I. And let me give you Fred knew how to produce records. He was already a record producer. When I started working with Fred, I was a guitar player. I played in a million bands. I did not know how to make records like Fred did. So my partnership with Fred, I learned, like all my production skills in the beginning from him. And so I was, he was more often wanting to say no because he was, in his mind, it was like, oh, here comes the trouble, right? But in my mind, it was like, oh, it's an opportunity for me to get in there and do something that I've never done before. So I would say yes to a lot of things that I think if it was up to him, he would have said no, but not because he wasn't open, but because his knowledge of the business tainted him a little bit already. So I was a little wet behind the ears. So I get this phone call, and I remember him saying, there's a short list of people we want to try this. DJ Shadow, DJ Spooky, you guys, a couple other people. And I was like, we're in, don't worry. So I did like 3 or 4 different ones. Fred did a bunch of different ones, and we sent them like 5 to 8 different versions of music we made from the car sounds. And I'm sure nobody did that.
Did they let you use the car? Did they give you the car to use to sample from?
Well, no, we
or
had all the car sounds already. They sent us all the car sounds.
Oh, they had already sent them. Okay, all right,
So
cool.
we made the music from all the car sounds, and then I get a call a week and a half later. Yo, the stuff you guys sent was amazing. You're on the short list. All right, cool. And we're getting ready to go on this huge tour. Like this is a massive tour. I think it was, I can't remember what album it was for. It was either Back to One. No, it must have been Human Condition or something. I don't remember.
What year was that? What year was it?
I don't
You
remember.
Okay.
I don't, those years are a little blurry at this point. So, um, um, I get we're getting ready for this tour. We're putting our set together, and I get a call back saying they love it. They're going to use your music. We're like, great. They're like, would you be in the commercial? And then they came out and ran during the Super Bowl, and it was a big deal for us. I mean, it paid us a lot of money in Oh, so that's where I learned about SAG. I became SAG from that because we had vocal performance on camera. I'm still a SAG member to this day. We made money on AFM.
So that made you SAG immediately by doing that and
Well,
being
you
in
can
that
choose.
commercial?
You can be free in SAG twice with like broadcast commercials, and then you have to join. Anyway, so from that experience, that's how I met this woman at Crushing Music, Mary Wood, and she was having me come in and scratch on commercials and stuff, and I didn't realize that I was accruing all this money at AFM. And one day I get this call from the musicians union, and they're like, is this Ming? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, you have 65 checks here or something like that. I'm like, what? Yeah, you have like 65 checks here, and some of them are going to expire like next week. Can you come in? And I'm like, I don't even know who you are. Who do you, like, why are you? I had no idea about AFM. So I go there, and this is the kicker, though. I'm not a good scratch DJ like Fred is. Fred was a really good battle scratch. Like he was an old school hip hop scratch DJ. I had learned how to scratch. Like so for me to be scratching on these commercials, he would laugh at me and be like, "Why do they want you to scratch? Like you're not the scratch DJ, right?" Making fun of me. I go to AFM. There's like 65 checks for like $250, $500,
And that's for like playing a lead instrument on the
or just being part of the commercial as a union, as a union.
Yeah.
It used to be like union fees for different things that you would do in a commercial: play guitar, play bass, sing. And so I what came back with this wad of money, basically being like, this is what you've been laughing at me. And then we both like had this moment of like, so I was like, see, fucker. But at the same time, we both realized this was a lucrative business. And so
Sure.
as Ming and FS did stuff, we had done commercials over the 10 years. In 2006, when we disbanded, I started a commercial music company called Habitat Music. And then that was just at the end of the sweet spot of the commercial music time, where you could get paid 30, 40 grand per commercial, to do music
For licensing, for music licensing or original comp?
Original composition.
Yeah. Okay.
Even licensing, you could get really good numbers. And
Sure.
that lasted for 4 or 5 years, until these places you can license music for $150 started popping.
Audio Jungle and all of these.
All that
yeah.
stuff really
Yeah.
killed
Yeah.
killed the value of the commercial music thing. So I think anybody who sticks around in this business long enough has to constantly. I mean, that's what the music business is. It's constant change. So
Yeah.
if you want to like just get into one track and then just burn that thing to the ground, most bands or people don't have more than a 5-year run, 10 if you're lucky, unless you evolve to the next animal. So if you're thinking about doing this as a career, you have to decide, am I doing a 5-year, 10-year, or am I going to be a lifer? If I'm going to be a lifer, you better be dynamic and be ready to change and constantly learn.
If you wanna ride, you ride the White House. If you wanna